Hello, today I'm going to help you make a super quick, really fast, long wrap dress. Alright, we got this fabric. It's really soft and stretchy, and I don't remember where I got it from, so please don't ask. It's older than two of my kids. It's got a really decent amount of stretch, and I'm looking to make it 40 inches long. The whole skirt 40 inches in length, because I'm short. And I'm not going to wear it with big old heels. So what I'm going to start out by doing, I'm going to try and squeeze in here and get this set up so that I can cut. I could fold it in half, but I don't want to. I don't like how when I fold things in half, my fabrics, they just kind of, sometimes they cut a little wonky. I prefer to open it up when I can and cut just one piece of fabric instead of on the fold. All right, so we're just gonna smooth it out. For the most part, I believe I'm pretty straight on the bottom here, and when I create my hem, it'll straighten it out even more, but it's actually really pretty good. Over here, we're around, let's get all this out of my way. Get my waist out. I don't like my fabric to move, and these are all clean pieces of weight from the garage. And we're just going to continue to smooth out our fabric. Make sure that nothing's distorted on the grain. Alright, so because we've got this herringbone pattern and vertical stripes, we really want to make sure that everything is straight. So when I look at it, I feel we're pretty good. Let me just make sure that it's really good. Okay, so I'm happy with that. We're going to get a big ruler now, and we're going to make our cut. Okay? So, we sew. All right, I'm gonna take a little peek, 40, and to err on the side of extra, we'll cut it at 42, which is right about here. And we're just gonna make sure that we're lined up before we use the rotary wheel. I think my small one's my sharp one. Let's see. We're gonna check this side. 42, pivot up a little. All right, so here we go. And I'm gonna do a sew-on waistband. I'm not sure, but it's probably gonna be a black stretchy waistband. And then really carefully pull your fabric and see if you were able to cut, because sometimes the cutting wheels aren't sharp and they don't cut properly. So you're gonna have to go again and be really careful to try and go along the same cut line. So don't move your ruler. Go all the way over and carefully see if we can open it up. I always also have my sharp scissors with me, just in case. Yeah, see, everything was wonky today. That's all right. We're gonna go in along the first line and we're gonna clean it up. Let's see if anything else opened. Sort of. I would say it was about maybe a quarter of an inch off, maybe not quite a full quarter of an inch off from my first cut to my second, but they were pretty parallel lines, so it's actually not that bad for cleanup. The first one actually did go through pretty good on the fabric, but I don't want to pull the threads and distort the pattern, so I'm going in with my shears to help open it up and cut all the way through. Oh, it's nice. We're doing construction outside. I hope you enjoy it. Almost done, almost done. Oh, there we go. We are getting close now. Alright, so we've got that cut. So this is our scrap, and we're gonna save this off to the side. We might use it for this project or a different project. Alright. And yes, I threw my weights out prematurely. I didn't really need them at all now, did I? I usually use them over paper. I guess I was a little happy just to throw some things out like confetti today. Alright, so we're going to put these back in place in their little home called the pink bucket. Sounds like money, but it's not. Alright. Now, this is the piece we're going to make into our skirt. So if you were just like going to play around and wrap it around the body, like so, this skirt is clearly not going to have enough width to have a big flare. So it's going to be more of like a straight skirt down, but I do like that kind of kick open. I like how it's opening at the bottom with a slit, maybe close to the knee area. For the waistband and the tie, I'm thinking of this solid black material here, if I have enough. I wonder if I cut it on the bias. I bet you if I cut a couple pieces on the bias and I sew them together, I can get a decent waistband out of that, and it will feel really comfortable. I like that idea. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then I can just put a simple folded edge hem on the skirt. And if I wanted to face it with something, I could, or line it, I could, but I probably won't. I'm just gonna roll that hem over, because that'll be the quickest thing to do. All right, so since we have this fabric ready for the skirt, I'm just gonna put it out of the way and get started cutting the bias for the waistband. Okay, so in order to cut the bias on the waistband, we need to find its truest grain. So to find the selvage edge, that's going to make it easier. And the selvage edge is the part that you get from the manufacturer. Usually it's got like a raw edge, and you can see like little holes that go along the whole edge. You don't want to sew with that because it has distorted tension at the edge, so usually you cut that right off. I mean, you could sew with it in a different way, using it as a trim or something, but you don't typically sew all the way up to the edge with that. You can even see how it kind of ruffles right here, just trying to lay it on the table. So we're going to smooth this out, and now that I can see where it's at, I've got to get it closer to getting it to a 90-degree fold over. So let's see. We want to get the widest area that we can fold this on. Oh nice, they're gonna jackhammer right outside my door. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna take this a little over more. I want to get the widest cut, the longest cut I can, to get the most stretch and the widest length I can, the most length for the waistband. Okay, I'm pretty comfortable with this, and I like my angle. I feel like I'm even. So now I would be doing my weights a lot more carefully too. I'm going to come from this side and hold it down, and then my ruler on the other side will work good. I just don't want the edges to like butterfly open as I cut them. That would be really irritating and hard to make a good straight line, you know? So let's not even go there. Okay, let's get the ruler. And we're gonna get over here. And the maximum I can push up to is right where this cut mark is from a previous use on the fabric. And I just need to make sure that I'm still looking straight. Can't go that far. Is that about right? Yep, okay. Alright, I'm happy with that. Let's get the scissors and make a cut. Okay. We're going to do the rotary because it does good mount all the way through. I just need to buy new blades. See if I can now push through. I'd rather not like having my wrist in front of the rotary blade, so we're gonna come over here. Let's try a smaller blade. Okay, so this is the piece I was able to cut, and I'm going to just test wrap it around my waist. So it's going to work. I wouldn't say it's long enough to do a tie on, but I don't really know if I want it to tie on. I don't really like ties. It just adds more bulk. So I could do it as a slip on and then just do away with having a tie. That's probably what I'm going to do. I'll just insert some elastic into the waistband and be done with it. Yeah, okay? Possibly. We'll see. I don't know. I don't like to follow rules. Things change a lot. It's just how design goes. So these are extra and just kind of scraps. I contemplated doing a pocket, but I just want to do a quick something, you know what I mean? I just want to be like, okay, I made something quick. I got a new outfit. I would love to make a top to go with it really fast, but I don't know if I'm going to get there that quick today. Okay. Alright, so I don't need my tape measure on no more. And at this point, we're going to do some fitting. And just make sure that I don't need to take off any more fabric. I don't want to have to take the skirt and cut it anymore after I've started sewing. I want all my adjustments to be done, okay? So I'm going to take this, let's see, what do I have? Do I have a selvage edge? Selvage edge? I do. So I have a selvage edge that I'm going to cut off. I don't really want to keep it. I mean, I could use it as a, no, I don't want it. I'm just going to cut it off and just stay right close to it so that I don't lose out on my fabric. So I'm just going to stay right inside this stripe here. So this is the selvage edge, and I don't know, it's kind of scraps, but I mean, I guess you could use it for like top stitching or something on like a crazy quilt. Okay, so I'm just gonna do some pinning, and then I can try this on. I'm going to pin it around a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then if it's like I need to adjust it and take it in more, I can, or if I need to let it out a little bit, I can. I always thought 5/8 of an inch was a bit much, but it's helpful because you really do need to have that allowance because certain parts of the body need more and need less, and so you just really, to make it easy on your pattern drafting, you just have the same allowance all the way around the body. And then just know that as you're fitting, some areas you just are going to have to take in, or it's going to be too big or too tight. Let it in, let it out. I know it's confusing, but it makes sense after a while. So join the party, keep coming back for more. I mean, literally this is like really simple. It's a rectangle that we're just sewing. And then we're going to make the waistband and set it in. At the most, you might have to do some curvature to allow for waist and hips on this skirt. I mean, but you might not also have to do that depending on the width and the stretch factor of the fabric that you're working with. that is going to play a big part on how it fits and how you might or might not have to curve your seams at the waist hip area. But it's usually only about maybe a 9 or like 12-inch drop that you have to add a slight curve, if any at all. All right, so I'm gonna pin it all the way down. I really don't like wearing pinned garments. It's not comfortable, but at the same time, I don't like basting, thread basting. I probably should, right? But I just don't. Probably a lot faster. But I just find that thread basting, proper thread basting, does take more time. If you don't do it proper, the basting stitches are too loose, and then you're not going to get the proper fit. And that's the whole point of trying on your garment, is to like get a proper fit. And if your seams are coming apart at the sides where you pinned or thread basted it, you know, it's just pointless. You're just wasting time. So go pin a little bit more to get closer to where my knees would be. A little more. Maybe one more. It's winter. I don't want to be cold, but I do want something that's cute. So after I try it on, I can always adjust the pins. I'm gonna try it on. Carefully turn it. All right. And now I'm gonna try it on. Ow, there's a pin. I hate that. All right. All right, so I gotta push this out of the way. I don't want to get stabbed. Okay, I'll be back. Cute. Waist definitely needs to come in by I'd say a full thumb length on each side for sure. And I like where the slit is on the leg. It just needs to be hemmed. It's really high-waisted. Do I still want to put on a black waistband? I don't know. I'm going to take the black waistband with me and see what it looks like. So if I fold it in half, let's go see. Yeah, I think it needs the black waistband. Strangely enough, it makes me feel a bit taller. I feel short with it not there. I don't know, maybe? We'll see. I think it needs the black waistband. I really do. I feel like it gives it like more oomph, for sure. Okay, so I can put my pants back on. And now I can turn it again. And so what I discovered when I was looking in the mirror is on both sides, the waistband, I have to take it in for sure. I mean, it's just like way too loose. So in order to do that, I'm gonna get everything straightened up here and make sure that my fabric is not twisted. We do not want twisted fabric before we start sewing our darts at the waistline. All screwed up looking. Horrible, horrible. No thank you. No thank you. Okay, let's straighten it up more. Okay. And now we can see any areas that we need to get cleaned up. Okay, so we're gonna straighten this up. Good. All right, this is like all so wonky on the side. Quite a bit up here. Good Lord. All right. Okay, so that's a better start there. And now what I'm going to do is use a hip curve ruler to go ahead and fix hip. Put in the hip. I'm going to put in the hip here so that it curves. I'm going to do mine at about a 9. Do I have any chalk? Let's see, let's do, are you plugged in? Here you are. I have to first make sure all my threads are right, and then I can get to sewing. It looks like some of them are a little messed up on the overlock. Let's see. And I'm going to get some test fabric and make a test run. This is not the test fabric. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. We're ready. test turned out good. Throw away some scrappadies. And I'm going to just get some chalk pencil and draw out my line. Alright. Like a white chalk pencil. Silver. Where's my chalk? Where are you, chalk? I got some better. Here we are. Oh, it's chalk. Alright, so I am going to make sure also check one more thing on the bottom. Good there. That our hem is good. The hemline that we're going to work with. Okay, so now up here it's a little bit off. So at the bottom I'm putting a pin to mark where I want my dart to stop. And again also at the top. And then I'm just going to kind of pin all the way down. And then as I sew I can remove my pins. But I don't want my dart to move as I'm trying to set all the fabric in place. Because then the dart won't lay straight or flat and it's just going to look homemade. And you don't want your garments looking homemade. You want your garments to look like, hey, where'd you get that? So take the time to construct. Okay? Alright. So make sure all your pins are safely put away, and I'm going to work right here at flipping a couple of these pins because I'm working the opposite side, so I just need to make sure that I pay attention. Alright, we're good there, we're good here. So I'm going to start at the top of my dart, which is the widest part. I'm going to get my first pin out of the way because you cannot sew over a pin. You will break your needle. Lift the feed presser foot so that you can get the fabric to go into the feed dogs. Set it down. And I'm going straight to the serger, or the overlock, with my Simplicity overlock, easy lock. So here we go. Stretch a little bit, remove a pin. Keep an eye on how you're supposed to be slowly reducing the width between the edge of the fold of the fabric and the end point. smooth curve. And you're just slowly going to have less and less fabric in the seam. Until eventually you just sew right off the edge of the fold. Remove the last pin, hold my finger on place where I need to drop off the fabric. Pull it out. Get a long enough tail on the thread that I can come in and tie it in a knot at the end. And then I can use a sewing pin to guide the knot all the way down. Do one more. Take my pin, guide that knot all the way down. And now I cut off the extra tail and this won't come undone. I can try it on and it will be great. It won't poke me. Same thing up here. Carefully pull the excess thread so that you can knot the thread at the top. Use your sewing pin to guide it down. And this one I'm just going to cut instead of knotting it twice because eventually it's going to get folded over and put into a seam casing. It will not unravel. So now when I lay out my fabric, you'll see that there's a nice curve to allow for the hip on one side, and it's going to need to be mimicked on the other side. So we're going to do the same thing again by stretching and gently stretching and laying out the fabric that we're working on, having everything straight. This is like why clothes don't fit good off the rack, because when they're constructed at the factory, there's something that didn't get lined up straight with the fabric grain, and then they sewed it anyways, and it was like, that's never gonna ever lay right, ever, because the whole fabric grain is twisted. Okay, so we're good there. This is gonna stay open. I'm happy here before I start sewing. There's a lot of pushing out from the center and padding. Okay, so now that this side is sewn down and flat, we can see if anything has become a little strange on the opposite side. And before we begin sewing and placing our reference marks, and we need to just make sure that this whole side is straight. And as you can, I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of off by just a hair, like a 1/4 of an inch. And that can be a big deal when you're finishing a garment. A lot of the times all it takes is to be a 1/4 of an inch off, and it looks hideous. And it's obvious that it didn't fit right or wasn't made well. Alright, so this feels like it's cut up better now. I like that much better. So now what I can do is fold the fabric over and just mimic my hip line on this side, and I'll be great. So in order to do that, since we already cut on the negative, I'm going to take some pattern tissue paper. My extra. There is trash I want to get rid of here before it gets on my nerves. Alright, so because we're going to need this on the opposite side, what I'm going to do, lay that down, and I can get a marker. Make sure everything's still nice and straight. I'm just gonna carefully there we go. All right. And then I can just flip it and line it up on this side and transfer it. And then I'll know that I'm good on both sides, right? Right. Okay. Ah, stop doing that. I miss my original mat, but I can't find it anywhere. As in, it's not being made anymore. I got this one. All right. So we're gonna line it up. And then you can even take another ruler and just lay it at the bottom where the points should be right next to each other. Should be right. And I like to try and end my point like a 1/4 of an inch early because it never ends on time. And so you always drag it out a little bit. And if you plan on ending it a little early, by the time it's actually ended, you'll be like right where you're supposed to end. Okay, so again, factoring on, I wanted a full thumb's length taken in, which is like 2 inches. So if I look at this, and then I could even measure again. Yep, I've got my 2 inches, I'm good. I can draw my chalk on. And then I'm also going to just go in with my pin. And mark that right there. And then I could do that, yeah. All right, well, let's just hold on there. Do you ever talk to yourself when you're planning? I do. I do it a lot. Yeah, I could do that. I'm almost thinking that it's going to be better if I overlock the edge. Or do I want to lay lace down over it? Because then it would kick open. But if I overlock the edge, then it'll be finished. I'll probably do that actually before I do the hip. I'm going to overlock my edge on the open kick slit. Then I'll just sew it down and finish it that way and it'll be done. And if I want to later go over it with like some finishing lace, I can. But otherwise it'll be good that way as well. And then I won't have to do like a full rolling over on the hem. I like that. Okay, so in order to do that, and because I'm going to overlock this side down, I'm going to start from the bottom of the skirt, overlock up to where the slit's going to go, past the actual slit, and then it's going to be done on both sides of the fabric opening of the slit. Then I'm going to overlock from the dart, from the top waist down, and just go off, and it'll just go boom, and then the overlock from the slit will meet, and it'll just be good. It'll be all nice, neat, and clean. And that's what we want. Nice, neat, and clean. So let's start with that first. I like to try and think with the end finish in mind because it will make it a lot easier. The worst thing is ever, you know, to like do a garment and then not be able to finish it and like never wear it because you never finished it. Because the seaming or the binding or whatever just took the life out of you. You don't want that. That is one side, and I'm not going to knot it because I'm going to sew right over it. in just a moment. So I'm just saving time, but not doing it. It's going to get locked down on the next seam. Not this one, but the next one. Okay, so finishing the raw edge again on the opposite side of the slit. And just give it a little pull, gentle pull. Rotate the fabric so that it's not pulling awkwardly as you're trying to sew. And I'm only allowing my overlock machine to cut off just barely anything off the edge. I don't want to remove the width of the seam allowance here. I just want to cover the edge. And then just fade away. Just right past where the seam is going to join for the slit to start and stop. All right, so what that looks like now, if we lay it back out, is now we've got our seam. So when we're done, what's going to happen? Oh, you can't even see it. All right, so right here is where the seam is going to split for the kick like that. And we're just going to press and sew that down, and then that'll be done for our kick, our slit. What we are going to do right now is make sure that we can do this, taking in at the waist, and that the dart will start and stop at the correct point around the hip on the both sides of the body. Super duper important, right? So we're gonna come to, oh, and that's the other thing, because we already have that. Okay, so what we need to remember, because we're sewing without a pattern, we're just completely sewing just something that we want to create using a simple rectangular shape of fabric that has stretch to get a really nice, essentially tube skirt, but we're fitting it at the hip and waist. So this side was already just on the fold here, and we don't have to do any sewing because it was folded. We sewed here. Now on this side, we're going to have the slit from here down, and from here up we have to sew. But there is a point in the middle of this area where we are going to have a seam. It has to just sew normal and straight. And so what we're going to do is make sure that we pin this. When we go, okay, it's going to go to here. So we want our seam here. And we have to make sure that as we sew, it's going to go along where the pins are set. And so that, oh, I got rid of it a little soon, didn't I? You ever do that sometimes? I know. I got a little too excited. So we're going to bring this back. And now when you go to do the sewing, don't put this all the way to the edge of the fabric, because you're not sewing, your seam isn't going to be at the edge of the cut fabric. You have to keep in mind that the seam actually is like 5/8 of an inch inside past the cut fabric edge. So when we look at the pattern that we made from this side, and then we're flipping it to put it on this side, this straight side right here at the hip needs to be 5/8 of an inch in, and then make sure that you've got your 2 inches in from that point where the new seam line is going to go. So if we've got it 5/8 of an inch here, we need another 2 inches there, and we're going to measure it, and it's going to look like this. That's the 5/8, and that's the 2 inch, and that's perfect there and there. So just to make sure that we are not forgetful and messing up when we sew, we're just going to put pins right through the paper, right through the fabric, and we're going to secure another one so that it doesn't move and get squirrely while we're sewing. The chalk line is a little bit hard to see on this particular color of fabric, and we're just going to keep our hand on it and press down and pin all the way through all the layers of fabric and all through the paper, and just keep your pin head about a half to a quarter of an inch away from the edge of the paper. Keep your hand flat. Make sure everything is smooth underneath before you start pinning. Go all the way to the very bottom edge. All right, we're good. So on this side, instead of tapering off the fabric and just disappearing like we did over here, we're actually going to continue the sewing line and just go straight down and then taper off when we get about, I'd say, an inch past the slit that we sewed upward from the bottom. And you'll see that when I'm done. I'll show it to you up close. Now what I'm going to do is start to remove the straight pins that are at the side edge that we originally used to hold the fabric closed, because they're close to the edge of the pattern and we don't want to get them in the way and have an accident where we wind up cutting or trying to cut a needle and then it breaks our machine. Okay, so take some more of these off. And I totally normally would rather sew from the top down, but I can't because of the way my sewing machine is with the serger overlock. So we're just going to carefully try and keep everything flat. I don't have the ideal setup right here for ease for me, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. Lift the presser foot, get all the little loose threads out of the way so they don't get sewn weirdly into the seam. Bring this over. And we're going to begin sewing just about an inch over the edge that we did. So right on in. Take a moment to remove a pin. And now we're going to get right in line with the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and just a gentle pull. Take another pin away. Remove another pin. Make sure that as you're feeding the fabric that it's going in even on both sides. Sometimes the fabric will go in more on the bottom or more on the top. So make sure you're pinching and holding it evenly and stretch just a little bit to encourage the fabric to go in at the same speed. Otherwise it's going to hike up weird on one side of your garment. Now when in doubt, you can always sew farther away from the body where the body will fill up the pattern. And then you can, always sew another seam past it if you need to take it in more. So it's always better to err on the side of, giving still a too big fit and then just taking it in. Which is kind of what I'm doing right now. I have a feeling I might need to take it in by about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, but I'd rather do that than be too tight. And now I can lay it out and see how it compares to the opposite side that was done first. Alright, so you might notice one thing at the bottom of the skirt is going to kick out funny, but you have to remember that we're going to press this back. And it's going to fold over to finish the edge. So, I think I'm pretty happy with this so far. What I need to do is do another try on to make sure I don't need to smooth out anything in the hip area. Sometimes if it's not smooth enough, it'll pucker funny and you might have to like take it in a little more. So I'm gonna try that on right now. Be right back. So I am pretty happy with what's going on so far. I technically don't need to do a waistband. It actually stays up. But I like a fitted waistband, and I think I'm going to do that black one. Let's see. So if I did this, you're not really going to see a waistband. I'm never going to wear it high where you can see it. So maybe I don't need a waistband. Maybe I could just put the elastic in just like this. Let's see what I have. Velcro. Let's see if I have anything on hand that would work. Ooh, I could do a glitter band. I don't really want that. A bit more. That's all too narrow. I don't really want to incorporate a drawstring. Let's see if I have anything hiding in the sewing kit. That's really wide. And that's really narrow. If I had to pick the two, I'd go with the wide. I mean, that's super wide though. Alright, let's just see. If I was to do a 2-inch wide waistband. A 2-inch wide waistband. Okay, we're gonna do it. Done. All right, so now we've got extra that can go back here. Could use that for the bralette. One thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. Let's get the skirt done. And that way, clean up as we go. And maybe throw some of this away. Alright. So at this point, yeah, I definitely need that waistband. I can already feel it falling. And if I pin this, just to try it on one more time and make sure that it's the correct tightness. I don't want it to like cut into me, but I also want it to stay there. I like that. That's a comfortable feeling. Okay, so in order to achieve that, this is way thicker than I need it to be. We're going to take this off, fold it over. All right. I could have done a better self-facing if I had done it before I sewed the sides, but whatever. We have tricks up our sleeve. Let me put my pants back on. All right. Actually, so this side. I'm going to take the waistband and yep. How do I want to do this? All right, we'll do that. So first I'm just going to sew over the edge. All right, now I'm going to knot this. Before I do though, give it a gentle, what do I call it? You're just going to give it a little gentle stretch before you knot the edge. And this will ensure that you have proper stretch with your fabric along your overlock edge, because sometimes some of the lines might be tighter than the others, and that's when you will start to hear snapping when you put your garment on. There. Not that you would really want to stretch your garment out that far, but it's just advisable. I'd rather not have my threads stretch and snap. And then I can get the needle and guide that knot all the way to the bottom, nice and tight. Cut off the tail. All right, and I'm just gonna be a little OCD, and I'm gonna do the bottom too before I move on any farther, because I just want to see this get finished, and the more I see finished edges, the happier I get. All right. Same thing on the bottom edge. Give it a gentle stretching to ensure that some of the threads are not too tight. Usually that's a sign that maybe your tension needs to be adjusted on the bobbin or on the needle thread. Either way, we're just gonna take care of it now. Because otherwise when you go to turn your edge and like let it hang naturally, it could look weird. All right. Now I'm gonna knot my edge here. Use a pin to guide it down. And cut off my excess. All right. So that's the bottom. And turn this. All right, so that's done. Essentially, it's done. What we're gonna do now is turn it down and then it can be sewn. Okay, so the reason why we sew all the edges over, even if we're gonna sew them, pardon me, in place, say we overlock the edges, just makes it easier when you go to sew it down and roll it. No frayed edges, nice and nice, okay? So, now that we've got all our raw edges taken care of with the overlock, we are going to turn it off and go to the straight stitch / zigzag machine. Okay, so I'm gonna have to change. Can you see it? Yeah, you can see it. We're over here now. And again, we need to do a little test strip. Let me see if I can find some trash fabric. Nice little stretch, zigzag stitch happening. Pull it out. Save yourself your frustration of ruining your fabric. Yep, we're good. Okay. Come on. This thread. It's on everything. Okay. Whew. So now we're going to take the top edge and turn it down just about a 1/2 inch. On a stretch stitch with, there we go. point, we have turned our edge down on the top of our skirt. So we did the overstitch to secure the edge from keeping it frayed, and it just makes it clean up really nice and looks very, very professional. So then if you turn it, we're just going to wind up basically turning it down one more time inside itself. And that is where the waistband is going to come. Oh. Look at this. And we're going to have that there. So where the elastic actually folds over is going to meet on the side seam where the slit is. Not in the back, not in the front. We don't want anything showing up lumpy in those areas because we have a really nice form-fitting, smooth, stretchy, soft fabric. We just want all our everything to look clean on the front and back. So when this folds over, like so, it will be perfect. So when we pin this elastic, we're gonna pin it where there's like maybe 1/8 of an inch between the edge that we just sewed over at the top of the skirt, and then we're just going to continue pinning all the way around. You could even put the elastic right up to the edge. It just depends on how you want the elastic to sit in your waistband. If you want it to be sewn in place or free float around your waist. I personally prefer free floating around my waist and having the elastic tacked in at the sides so that it doesn't get twisted. I like that fit and I like the way it looks. I tend to not like the way it looks when it's sewn in place all the way around one edge at the top of the elastic or the bottom, because I feel like it can look like elastic. It can look bunchy where the elastic is literally sewn onto the fabric, and I don't like that. So I'll explain it more as I go. Just let me get it in place first. And we are pinning the elastic to the inside, the wrong side of the fabric. And I have not sewn the edges of the elastic shut. The reason we're pinning the elastic in place is because when we go to turn the edge of the skirt fabric over, we don't want the elastic getting all messed up in its placement, because we're going to sew the skirt down in place on top of itself to create the elastic casing for the waistband. And then once it's done and we've sewn it in place, we're going to allow a little hole so that we can go in and pull our elastic through and then sew it shut to get the perfect cinch on our waist. Then we'll just sew up that little hole on the bottom of the waist, and you'll be like wondering, how in the world did we get such a smooth insertion on our elastic waistband? And that is how. And then where we have extra elastic, we're just going to overlap the ends just for now and pin them down in place. Okay? So then next up, you're just going to fold the skirt over one more time on itself, like so. won't see the elastic or much of anything else. So this part we have to be careful as we sew down because we don't want the pins stuck on the inside. So what I suggest, you might need a lot more pins, but then once you've got your fold in place, push the elastic nice and tight all the way up to the top of what's going to become the top of the skirt. And check to make sure that as you're doing it, that your herringbone pattern, if you have a pattern, will hang straight. You might have to turn the skirt again. Okay, so when you go to fold it over, make sure that the pins aren't hooking into the fabric, causing it to twist prematurely. Some of my spots are doing that, so I have to get in there, loosen the pins. Because you know when you have pins sticking through the fabric, sometimes they catch the fabric. And we don't want that yet. Not until at least we've set it and we like the hang. Okay, I think that side's good. I like the front. So just make sure that there's no excess fabric at the top. Push that all the way to the top. And then start pinning it again. But this time you're going to pin it at the top edge of the elastic. All the way through all the layers of the fabric. And just make sure again that the elastic is at the very top edge of the fabric. And it's nice and flat, no puckers. And then what we're going to do is rotate to the opposite side. And the same thing, we're going to check our pins. Ow, make sure they're not catching to the front side of the fabric just yet. Push that elastic all the way up and make sure it's nice and smooth along the fabric that's on the outside. And then I'm going to pinch it and check how the hang is. That looks good. Okay. Now I can start pinning it again. I kind of like to pin from both sides going inward. And like from the center, I just feel like it ensures a nice even tension on the fabric all the way around the garment. Like for instance, you just don't want to wind up having excess fabric at a certain part of your waist. Because then you have to figure out what you did wrong and how you're going to redistribute the fabric and get it done right. And if you've already sewn it down, I mean, oh, it's just a nightmare. And I do like to cut my threads as I go. I can't stand garments that have threads hanging everywhere. Okay, so we'll double check the hang, make sure I'm happy with it. Yep. Okay, so at this